If you're in the market for investment-worthy bags, watches, and fine jewelry, Rebag is the answer. Rebag is a luxury resale marketplace where each piece is carefully vetted and verified by experts to ensure quality and authenticity. If you're in the market, use Rebag to buy and sell finds from the world's top brands, including Hermes, Chanel, and Cartier. Head to Rebag.com to get 10% off your first purchase with code REBAG10. Shop today at Rebag.com. That's REBAG.com and use promo code REBAG10 for 10% off your first purchase.
Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Welcome to the Powercat Podcast, presented by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. Now let's go to the rolling Flint Hills, home of the Cats and Dogs Studio. Here's your host, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to the Powercat Podcast, the video version. Fitz and Zach here in the studio. Zach's color, your color went bad again. You're just going to look weird.
It's just going to be weird.
Zach is perfectly healthy. Nobody panic. He doesn't have anemia.
The suds. I can kind of see myself out of the corner there. Am I like pale or am I like red?
You're pale. Yeah, I thought I adjusted you. And in the middle, he never looks healthy. Ryan Gilbert, who got off work, as you can see by the shirt he's wearing of a non-sponsor. And yeah, but we are sponsored by the Fridge Wholesale Liquor. I told Gil, you know what? We can do this on video. Just stay at home. And now look at him. He's all blurry because he's on his iBook Air or whatever it is. What's it called?
Hey, I do have a pretty bad phone.
Yeah, which one's worse?
My computer is up to date-ish.
His computer, the phone. I think I'd take the computer there.
Yeah, exactly. The phone actually doesn't have a camera. It has a built-in Etch-a-Sketch. That's how old it is. The computer, the Air, Macintosh put about 480p cameras in their Airs. They're awful. Look at him. Look at his eye blurry. He's never attractive, but he's blurry. Anyhow, we're sponsored by the Fridge Wholesale Liquor. Make sure you stop into the Fridge whenever you're in town. They're getting more bang for their buck now that they're on YouTube with us. Go check out their social media. Folks, it's fantastic. They have the best social media director ever. Sorry, Zach.
Is it the Beer Fairy?
No, the Beer Fairy's long gone. The Beer Fairy now is the morning DJ at K-Rock, I believe. I believe David's still over there. But yeah, they do some great stuff with their social media. Fridge Wholesale Liquor, the corner, this, that, in the town in which we live. On with the podcast. And this is how it works. You get to ask the questions at Wabash Station if you're a VIP to Go Powercat. It's been that way since the start. We might do some questions from the YouTube audience at some point, but not for now. Our subscribers get asked the questions. We read them. You hear them. It's a beautiful thing. Here's your questions from Wabash Station. Zach Carlson.
From Dinland 0809, how many losses will the Big 12 regular season champs have this year? We're doing basketball in the first half.
Oh, this is so confusing.
We've mixed it up. It's basketball season now.
Basketball. I don't know, man. 18 games? 13?
I was going to say 13.
Gills?
Yeah, I would go 13, 14. I mean, you look at Texas Tech, and as of right now, recording, like they're the only team that's unbeaten, right? And I think we can all agree that Tech's probably not the best team. So you look at KU or Houston, whoever that number one team might be, they already got one loss on the resume or in the standings, so to speak.
Yeah. It's just so hard to win on the road. It's unbelievable. I mean, if you steal them, we're talking about teams. If you're going to go 13-5 and you stay unbeaten at home, well, that's That's 4 road games you got to win. You go 4-5 on the road, and that wins you the conference. That's insane. That is absolutely nuts. I just can't even imagine what this is going to look like by season's end. I mean, these coaches, these teams are just going to be kind of battered by everything. As I turn on my do not disturb, it's just incredible. It really is. I don't know. I mean, could we have like a team that wins the conference with 12 wins? It'd be a tiebreaker.
I think if it's 12 wins, I think you're going to be splitting it. I think
it's incredible.
I even think at 13 wins, you're probably splitting. Mm-hmm. If somebody's going to win this conference outright, they need to win 14 or 15 games. I think that there's enough good teams in the league, especially with 4 extra teams than what it's been in the past. You're going to have to win a lot of games, and if you want to win this thing outright, you're probably going to split.
Gil, so much of this will come down to who you play where. Do you get some of the easier teams on the road? In K-State cost West Virginia on the road. I can't remember. Did they come back in here?
No.
So that was the one game. I mean, that's huge for K-State to get that game. They had UCF, of course, in Manhattan.
Or wait, what was the first one you said? West Virginia? No, they do come back. Sorry. Okay. I was thinking UCF. They don't go there.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you catch the right teams on the road and you steal some wins and you protect your home court, Gills, I guess that would work. But this is going to be a bloodbath.
Yeah. I mean, we always mentioned how good Houston is. And, with that being a newcomer, I think we all kind of just agreed upon, we agreed that Houston was going to be really good. And then UCF, BYU, Cincinnati were just kind of, do their own things. Well, we saw this on Wednesday night. UCF's been playing really well, not only a win over KU, but now this evening, a win over Texas. I mean, we saw Cincinnati knock off TCU. And then BYU's obviously been in the top 25 this season. And so it's not just Houston that's carrying the weight for those 4 newcomers. All 4 of them have been respectable. They've been good. And I don't think many of us expected that. West Virginia, I mean, they kind of are who they are. I mean, they beat Texas. Maybe Texas is the one that teams are going to beat up on, along with Oklahoma State, who K-State gets to see on Saturday. And that's an important game for Kansas State because we talk all about winning on the road at Texas Tech and, Baylor at home, these sort of toss-up games where the spread isn't, in favor of one team or another by too much. I mean, K-State's going to be a heavy favorite against Oklahoma State. These are the gimmies. I mean, you got to have these ones, and if you don't come out on top at home against arguably the worst team in the conference, you can still recover from that. Your season's not over, but those are just free wins that you cannot afford to give away. But no game is safe in the Big 12. Jerome Tang talked about that last week in his midweek press conference. Like, yeah, you kind of have your thoughts of who's going to win this game here and who's going to win that game there. But at the end of the day, there are no upsets in this league. Losing on the road, there's absolutely no shame in that, regardless of who you're playing.
No, I agree.
Next question's from Crispy. Welcome to the podcast. First time, I think, here. With how much playing time Tyler Perry, Arthur Kaluma, and Cam Carter are getting, when do we see the fatigue starting to set in?
That's a great question.
I think you could include Will McNair in there, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They've been – that's a lot of minutes.
Or even Hassan. Yeah.
Jarrell Colbert stepping up is going to help quite a bit there. But they do have – I mean, let's be honest here. Michaela Rich is going to have to take some of these minutes. At some point, he's going to have to step up and be more, have some more contributions to this team. And and that just isn't talking. I mean, you've got to be, you got to prove it in practice for Jerome Tang. There's a whole thing there that you're just not going to get on the court because we need you. If we're desperate, we'll put you in, but you got to earn this thing. And you're right. There's going to be fatigue. They are, but that's going to happen across the conference to a number of teams. A lot of coaches only go 7-8 deep. And you better develop that bench. They need Day-Day Ames back.
Yes.
And I think that'll happen Saturday. And they just need to have every available body. They have no more to give after losing 2 guys that were supposed to be on this roster.
I think.
So I mentioned. Go ahead.
Oh, Zach. Sorry.
Here we go. We're on virtual. We're going to have all these interruptions, right?
Lovely. What I was going to say is this is a weird year in the Big 12 where you get a bye week. You get a bye week in mid-February, or at least K-State does. So I don't know how many games they will have played at that point, probably close to 11 or 12. But if they can manage through these, next few weeks up until that BYU game, they take a week off after, and they probably get a rest and get their legs under them a little bit. I think that's the perfect time to have your bye week in this conference. So if they can get through these next 7 or 8 games, unscathed, if they can go 5-3, 6-2, I don't know. I think they've got, a tough road ahead after they play Oklahoma State. But yes, they're going to be fatigued. They're going to be tired. But at a certain point, you're going to be playing games every other day. If you want to win a national championship, you've got to put the minutes in and play these, 38, 40-minute games. So, I think they'll be fine down the road, but yes, that fatigue will probably pop up here soon.
I agree. It's going to be a lot of wear and tear. And if you're K-State, your biggest fear now is an injury or two, an injury to a key player. You're just kind of out of depth already. It's not a good situation, but I'm sure they'll be protective in practice and try to make sure everyone's ready to go. It's just got to kind of back off it a little bit, I think, in practice, because if you lose one more major contributor, you're in big trouble.
And they will back off in practice. I mean, Jerome Tang mentioned that last year. I think K-State had lost 4 out of 5 or something like that in Big 12 play. They switched some things up. They changed up the starting lineup. They put Desi Sills in there. And then also Tang mentioned, I think it was Anthony Winchester, pointed out to him, like, man, we're going so hard in practice. You guys remember this? And they toned it down and got some fresh legs, and it made a difference. K-State started winning some more games. And so, they're going to have to, at some point, they're going to have to calm it down a little bit. But also, I mentioned this in my analysis piece after that Baylor win. We've talked about, needing Dorian Finister to step up and be that X factor for this team, or at least an X factor to come in and, like the question said, take the load off of Perry, Kaluma, and Carter. K-State got 3 of those against Baylor. I mean, RJ Jones, that 3-pointer in overtime, K-State doesn't even have a chance for Kaluma to hit that go-ahead three-pointer in overtime if Jones doesn't hit his 3-pointer. And so Jones was big. Dorian Finister, he got Sandstorm to be played after his alley-oop dunk, right? Jerrell Colbert had a couple of, emphatic dunks throughout that game. And so K-State got X factors. They didn't just get one. And so I think you were happy if Dorian Finister continues to emerge and be this guy. Okay, great. TP plays 2 less minutes a game. Cam plays 3 less a game. At the end of the day, that's not going to move the needle as much as you might want it to. They're going to need guys like Finister, of course, Colbert, even Manning can throw it. Rich, like you said, Day-Day Ames, once he's healthy. I mean, you are already thin without Tomlin and Glover. You need not just one guy. Finister has been great at what he's been doing, but you're going to need more than just Finister to step up and be an X factor down the stretch for this team. Because, these stars, the trio of Carter and Perry and Kaluma, that can only do so much. And obviously when they're on the court for, 38, 39 minutes a game, and that takes a toll on you. And that's also something I remember I wrote about this, like, before Big 12 play began, like 10 things K-State has to do. And one of them was just avoid overtime. Now, it's great because Jerome Tang's never lost. He's 10-0 now in overtime games. That's great. So by that logic, you should want every game to go into overtime, right? But, those extra 5 minutes here, extra 5 minutes there, those are going to add up. That's going to take a toll on you. Going out to BYU, like you mentioned, Zach, like that's right around the bye, right? Do you want to have 5 extra minutes in that altitude? No, you need to win these games in regulation. It's awesome they can win them in overtime, but winning it and keeping your players, your star players, off the court for, 7 minutes a game, having them play 33 minutes a game, that's where you want to be. And I get it. It's still January. This team is still, I should say this staff, rather, is still trying to figure out how this team can really click come March. So it's still a process, but I think they're making strides in it. Tang did acknowledge it recently that, I mentioned Will McNair. He's, that he can't be on the court for more than 35 minutes. He just can't. So I think they're in a good place.
I agree.
Next question is from Came to Elevate. It's the second year in a row we have seen Jerome Tang and his staff turn it on for conference play. What are they doing differently to get K-State playing at a higher level each January?
I don't know.
I kind of just answered that question. Like you go back to the USC game, right?
Mm-hmm.
The K-State, the goal was not to win that game. Like Taj started that game, right?
Yeah.
Right? Didn't he? And he hasn't played in multiple games, right? And so that, for the first, and that's just a good way to sum up the non-conference. All K-State, Jerome Tang and his staff were trying to do was figure out all they need to know for that. What was it, 11 games in the non-conference? That's all they were trying to do, was just figure out what they like and don't like about certain schemes. This guy here, that guy there. That's why they've been able to turn it up a notch, is because, okay, these games, they mean a little bit more in the Big 12. Now it's time to really get things to click. Like Dorian Finister, let's get him on the court more and see what happens. And obviously he's been tremendous.
Non-conference play is like a sandbox. You can build, whatever you want, play around, but you can start over really easily. Nothing's set in stone. It's not hard to make changes, and you're testing stuff out. You're seeing what works and what doesn't. Come January, come conference play, you get the building blocks. You get the wood, the steel, the nails, the bolts. You are trying to build something bigger than what you had been doing in non-conference play. Non-conference play, you can start over fresh. There wasn't a lot of stock to be taken from what you do there. You're trying to learn about yourself. But come conference play, that's where you're really trying to build.
But it's amazing. Just a couple weeks ago, we watched this team grope around with Chicago State and have issues. It is incredible how they kind of flipped the switch a little bit. And I think it's as simple as, okay, we've experimented in the non-conference. We know what we like and don't like. Here's the stuff we like. Let's put it out there. Here's the combinations we like. Let's put it out there. And here's the rotation that's been proven to us. But I still find it amazing.
Sorry. You bring up a good point, Fitz. Just because you're trying to figure yourself out doesn't mean you should be going to overtime against Oral Roberts. Doesn't mean you should be going down, Chicago State, all these close games that K-State had against opponents that you have no business being competitive with, right? So I get the question. I do, because, it's like the JV team going up against the varsity team, right? No matter what, no matter even if the varsity team's on their worst day, they should still be able to handily beat some of these teams in the non-conference. So it's a valid question that, was brought up here. I just think that at the end of the day, the root is that K-State is, once January, 7th or 8th was the first Big 12 game. Once Big 12 play started, it's a whole new season for this team and this staff.
Last question of the first half from Call Me T22. Can K-State win at home the rest of the way? Outside of KU, no one looks as daunting as the task faced last night.
Well, they should have gone unbeaten last year, and they had a trip up. Again, in this conference, anyone can have that night. Even Oklahoma State coming in Saturday could put it all together and win on the road. As tough as it is to win on the road, these teams are good. What's unfortunate for a team like Oklahoma State is I think they're good enough for the SEC, the Big Ten, maybe the ACC. They're not good enough in the Big 12, and that's the conference in which you play. So, if you rise up on the right night and have that big game, sure, go win. But yeah, staying unbeaten, even if you beat Kansas in Bramlage, is a challenge. And we've seen that they have had struggles with other teams. Maybe it's that conference switch that we just discussed, but I think they could still have some issues at home. Folks, I'm not sold on this team. I'm sold that they can play at a pretty good level. I'm also sold on the fact that they have vast improvements they can make. They can cut down those turnovers. But the turnovers aren't just because they're sloppy. They're not good ball handlers. They've got two off guards out there handling the ball, and you can tell Tyler Perry and Cam Carter haven't had the ball in their hands a whole lot through their basketball career. Shame on their coaches. They should have been better prepared for something like this. And so there's flaws in this team that they're covering up, but there's also improvements that can still come. And if you play defense like that, you're going to win ball games. And that's exactly what happened against Baylor. They played incredible defense. The crowd and the defense, I think, rattled Baylor, which is impressive because it's usually a pretty cool-handed team under Coach Drew. So there's just a long ways to go. And we don't know. Maybe by season's end, when BYU rolls in here, they're rolling and they're going to be tough to beat. We'll see how it all plays out.
So playing at home, that's kind of what the question was about, but also like Baylor playing on the road, the number one ranked 3-point shooting team in the country went they made 5 3-pointers. Atrocious from 3-point land was Baylor. And so while you can get beat on any given day at home, even if you're playing a really good game, teams are going to have those nights where they beat you or you let one slip away, whatever it may be. But also you can go on the road and you can win those games or at home, doesn't matter where it's at, if your opponent is just can't buy a basket from 3. In the first and second half of that game, Baylor made 3 3-pointers. 2 of them came in overtime, and I think a lot of us were just thinking in the back of our minds, okay,
here they go.
At some point, they're going to start to fall. Here they are. K-State goes down by 5, and I outlined earlier the importance of that R.J. Jones 3-pointer. And so that kind of leads me here into another point with Jones. Have him be more of a volume shooter. He's the team's second best 3-point shooter, only behind Arthur Kaluma. Kaluma's up near 40%. Tyler Perry's down. He's just over 30%. And so
I'm surprised
Tyler Perry's taken over 2 times more 3-point attempts than Kaluma. And so the reason those percentages are where they are is because Kaluma is taking smart shots. They're in rhythm. He's not forcing things. Whereas Perry, the one 3-pointer that he made all game against Baylor was up in transition. If that ball doesn't go in, Jerome Tang's just, punching air. Like, what are you doing, man? Obviously it goes in. Great shot. It went in. But Perry needs to learn to take smarter shots for this offense. K-State can't afford to have him. The amount of times, it happened a few times against Baylor when he had his heat check moments, but this whole season where Perry just dribbles around for 15 seconds, there's no offense, no passes, and he chucks up a prayer. You need to get your best 3-point shooters good looks. Now, is Tyler Perry maybe a better natural shooter than Kaluma? Probably so. He is. He has a knack for putting the ball through the net. We hear it all the time from Jerome Tang and the players about how good he is in practice. But we haven't seen those in games. We haven't seen those results in games. Why? Because he's not taking smart shots. He's trying to facilitate for others. He's not focusing on being just a scorer because he's also trying to be a point guard, which is not really natural for him at this point in his career. And so I'm for Perry taking, shots. He needs to take smart shots. I'm for Kaluma taking more shots, but he can't start to force things. Tang acknowledged it after that Baylor game. You got to get him more looks. Okay, that doesn't mean just start chucking up prayers. That percentage is going to go down. But I mentioned R.J. Jones. Get him some more open looks. We saw that he's got that clutchness in him. Dorian Finister, what's the next step for him now that he's starting to play 20 minutes a game here in conference play? Hit those open looks. He hasn't made a 3-pointer yet in Big 12 play. He's taken like 6 or 7 of them, I believe. So those are the next steps for this team. Take smarter shots from beyond the arc. You've got some guys that are capable of hitting those shots, and we hear about it in practice, but it's just a matter of getting better looks from beyond the arc for this team to really start to, along with eliminating the turnovers. That's where they can find their next gear.
Good stuff from Gills.
To get back to the question, I think K-State's they're 2-0 at home right now. If they go 7-2 at home, at worst, they're an 8-10 basketball team.
Right.
So when you think about it that way, a couple podcasts ago we were talking about what is our win expectation for K-State. I think we said 9-9. We said 10-8, somewhere in that range. To get to 10-8, if K-State wins 7 games, if they go 7-2 at home, a loss to KU, lost to somebody else along the way. They can find those 7 games. They've already got the win at West Virginia. They just got to go find 2. Go beat Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Texas, BYU. I think this team could very well be an 8. This hot start that they've had, going 3-1 was so critical, because now I think that target is certain. I think the floor is 9-9 right now, but I think that you're looking at a 10-8, maybe even 11-7 ball club right now. The start was so clutch. Granted, UCF, at least coming in, it was their first Big 12 game. They hadn't beaten KU yet. Not a team that you would expect K-State to lose to, but they really did get hot early. They had a chance at Texas Tech. K-State is 1 shot away from being a 4-0 team. I think that, regardless of what they do at home, I think that they've proven themselves early on getting to this start that, they might have exceeded our expectations a little bit, even just a couple weeks ago going into conference play.
A lot of basketball to be played, and it starts on Saturday.
Are you about to go to break? One more thing here. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Jerome Tang was asked about, what's it going to take for this team to get to the NCAA tournament right before conference play. And he said 8 wins. And it felt as if Tang was kind of just admitting that his team's not good enough to compete for a Big 12 title. Just try to win 8 games and sneak into the tournament and do what you can do. I think now there's a real different belief within this locker room after just 4 games in Big 12 play that they can do something special, not win the league or anything like that. But I mean, you talk about guys like RJ Jones and Jerome Colbert going on the scout team, and, guys are finally like buying into the team, right? I'm not saying that Jones or Colbert, any of these guys weren't, but Tang, especially after that Baylor game, it felt like everything had all come together for him. They get over the hump against a really good top 10 team. And just everybody's it's starting to click, right? And we mentioned that they're 3-1 in the Big 12. Things have overall clicked through these past 4 games, but I think Tang, the expectation, 4 games to go to where we are now, I think he believes this team can do something a little bit better than just 8 wins now. Like that, the expectation for this team has really changed in that locker room, even without Quez Glover, who they thought they'd have for Big 12 play.
Okay, we ready for break?
Go for it.
Let's do it. Here's your break. We'll be back on the other side as you hear from our sponsors, and we'll have more of your questions from Wabash Station.
We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Please visit The Fridge Wholesale Liquor, located at the corner of Claflin and Westport Road in Manhattan, Kansas.
With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.
Welcome back to the show. Let's return to the Cats and Dogs studio.
And we are back with the Powercat Podcast. Fitz and Zach here in the Cats and Dogs studio. Ryan Gilbert in his own little special place.
My humble abode, they call it.
His apartment, but I wanted it to sound like weird because he's weird. One thing that's bothering me, guys, is just off to the side of my head is Rocky the Wildcat's paw. And I keep thinking something's on my screen, and it's his paw. Anyhow, we're sponsored by The Fridge. The great folks at The Fridge will take care of any needs you have as you roll into town. If you come in Saturday, maybe you want to pick up some flavors for some tailgating in your car. You don't want to be outside. The weather's supposed to get bad again. It got up to 30 today, and they're going to call it good and start winter over again. But stop into The Fridge whenever you're in town. Great service there. Just incredible people to help you find what you need for your party, your night, or if you're having a really rough week, your morning, and they'll be there to help you with all your questions. On with your questions from Wabash Station. I assume we're going to do football. Maybe
Eventually.
Eventually. Maybe we get some field hockey questions.
Yes.
Oh, no, we don't have a field hockey team. Here's Zach Carlson.
From B. Foster, 1959. What was more astonishing, the way K-State lost at Texas Tech when it looked like a win was right in their hands, or the way K-State won against Baylor when defeat seemed almost certain?
they were so similar though, weren't they? I mean, you looked at what happened to K-State down there, and I still think it was kind of fueled by some weird officiating, but they had that game won and they just couldn't put it away. And Baylor couldn't put K-State away either. But they made some mistakes. That foul on the 3-pointer by Kaluma was epic. I mean, you just can't do that right there. You turn that 2-point lead into a 2-point deficit, and next thing you know, you've missed a shot and fouled Tyler Perry, and it's a 4-point deficit. So I kind of feel like K-State was a little more emphatic in how they won it in overtime, but two great basketball games. K-State just split the difference on how they came out.
So the way that Texas Tech game started, I think it was sort of K-State was playing with house money once it got a lead, right? Like K-State's start in Lubbock was awful. It was terrible. It was, and then they go out and they have a double-digit lead at halftime. But the way you start off that game, you kind of had a feeling it was going to come back to bite you. Didn't you? Kind of, you maybe felt the same way, maybe you didn't, and of course it did, right? In K-State, Tyler Perry hit 4 3-pointers in a row, right? Or was it 3 or 4?
3.
Anyways, 3. You're not going to do that all game long. I mean, you're not going to do that for a full 40 minutes. And so the way that game started, I don't want to say I expected K-State to lose or anything like that, but I wasn't surprised when there was the letdown. I know the officiating was questionable, to say the least, on some of the travel with Toussaint. Like that was a very bad missed call, awful. But I think that the sort of the downfall in that game did not surprise me one bit. Now, the way with the Baylor game, again, K-State, both teams had a really slow start, but I mean, K-State had many runs in that game. It felt like more often than not, the momentum was on K-State's side. And so when that game went to overtime, let alone the fact that Jerome Tank's perfect in overtime games. But then, they go down by 5, like we mentioned earlier. I thought K-State was going to lose. So I was surprised to see them come back from that, because Baylor, it felt like, finally gathered itself in the 42nd minute of that game. But they were different games, and also very similar in some regards. So I just wasn't surprised with K-State losing at Tech after the way it started. You can't start like that. And again, K-State won against Baylor. Awesome. 17 turnovers is not going to win you many games in the Big 12. 18 down in Lubbock, you lose the game. Even if you have like 15 guys, you probably win that game.
But as you pointed out after the game, they clamped down on those turnovers. They did not turn it over in overtime. They did cut it down the stretch. They have this
in the
capability.
last 14 minutes of the second half, and then none of the time.
Yeah. I mean, so now that puts into context how sloppy they were before then. To have 17 at that point was pretty awful. And to beat the number 19.
Offense.
Yeah, they just don't have natural ball handlers. Yeah. And it's a point of frustration for me that kids are growing up playing basketball who can't dribble. You're playing at this level and you don't have better handles. I can't explain it.
Yeah, I felt
on offense, but on defense, that's where K-State did win that game. Great defense.
Yeah, I felt K-State coming back against Baylor. I felt K-State was probably out of it more so than they felt like they were going to win at Texas Tech. It really felt like for most of the game that K-State was truly out of it. There was no way they're going to be able to come back, but they found a way to get it to overtime. They found a way to win. So, like Gil's talked about the start at Texas Tech. It was so bad. Once they go on that huge run, Texas Tech doesn't score for 8 minutes or something to end the half. I mean, it was crazy. K-State's playing with house money at that point. Texas Tech was going to find themselves in the second half, probably a little bit. K-State was going to cool down, and that's kind of what happened. Then you have the officiating. We all know what it was, and you get that result. So, yeah, I think K-State being able to come out against Baylor, when they're down, especially at home, that, it was credit to the crowd for keeping K-State in that game.
Crowd was amazing.
I mean, it was great.
So, Zach, you were in Lubbock. I'm curious. I think the TV broadcast was poor, so I don't think it did a good job of telling the story of the crowd. How was that crowd like compared to Tuesday in Manhattan? Like, does that really make much of a difference for Texas Tech on Saturday?
I mean, I'd say it made a difference, but not like K-State's. Okay. Bramlage is a different beast. I'd put Bramlage up there with Allen Fieldhouse, maybe Hilton to an extent. But, you know, don't get me wrong. Texas Tech had a great crowd. It wasn't like the arena is full. Okay. And it is a nice arena. It's a great a great place to go, spend an afternoon. But it kind of felt just like a casual Saturday afternoon. More so, K-State has so many students that go to the game. That's what makes the environment special, at a lot of these places around the conference. But there wasn't, there were students there. It probably depends on where you position the arena. Mm-hmm. When you put them on an end, it's a little different, especially when they're not symmetrical on both ends. It's just kind of one-sided. It was a good environment, but I wouldn't say that it was insurmountable, so to speak. K-State was not affected by the crowd noise, so to speak. It was very much an OU or an Oklahoma State style crowd. Enough people are in the arena. It's, they can make some noise, but nothing like K-State or KU.
So after K-State lost to Nebraska, I posted something out on Twitter along the lines of, it's a two-way street between the fans and Jerome Tang. Tang can beg all the fans to come all he wants, but that Nebraska game was awful. It was boring. And so I said it's a two-way street, and I got some heat for it. And was I wrong? Maybe, maybe that was a little rude of me to say. I'm not going to deny that. But the way that game against Baylor unfolded, win or lose, like if you're a K-State student, it goes two ways. Jerome Tang's going to beg you to come out. And the way that atmosphere was, how electric that was. I mean, Jerome Tang credited, he says, we don't win this game without the fans, without that home court advantage. I mean, K-State, like, that felt like a KU game at times. After Finister's alley-oop, Sandstorm was playing. Like, I got to be fair and point it out both ways. I mean, if you're a K-State student, if I was a student still, when K-State won the Big 12 in 2019 with Barry Brown, his senior year, I was going to all those games, having an absolute blast. And that was with Bruce Weber as the head coach. I cannot imagine how much fun I'd be having if Jerome Tang was the head coach when I was a student. So it goes two ways. When K-State, Jerome Tang, he's begging y'all to come. And the results on the court, I mean, and the atmosphere that he's created, I don't know. And this goes for the alumni and chairbacks as well. After the way that Baylor game went, there's just, and especially last year, the whole entire season, there's no reason that Bramlage should not be a sellout night in and night out. And it makes a big difference. And that's why I asked you about Texas Tech, Zach. Like, it's Bramlage at K-State, there's not many schools in not only the Big 12, but the entire country that can get a home court advantage like that.
I agree.
Right. Next question is from Powercat. Who is the most improved player on the basketball team?
Dorian Finister.
Wow. Yeah, I would say so.
I mean, I'll be honest. I didn't think Dorian was going to pan out in any way. I thought he was just one of those early signings you get when you arrive at a program, and
he was early for when they arrived, but he was very late for his cycle. He was still on the shelf,
and so but he's such an athlete. There's something there that obviously they see it in practice. We saw it in the alley-oop he caught. I had to go back and watch it again because Coach Tang brought up the fact he beat Kaluma up the floor. And I'm like, I don't remember Kaluma, but he was on the other side of the floor. So they were actually running a really good fast break. They had guys on both sides of their guard, and Finister made it down there first, and up the ball went. God, he can jump. He plays above the rim. He's been called upon to rebound, and he did that. There's just something there that I never expected, and I got my hats off. But you also have Cam Carter, who's playing at a level I didn't ever think he would be able to do. He's got to handle the ball better than he did, but he's now a playmaker. He was a shot maker. He stood out 3-point range, but now he takes the ball to the hole. He's done some nifty passing. The shame of this is if he had better handles, he could be the point guard because he sees the floor better than Tyler Perry, in my estimation. And But Cam's gotten a lot better. He's still got more time to get better, and it's going to be fun to watch because he is fun to watch play.
The thing with Cam Carter, like the question says, who was the most improved player, right? Like, yes, Cam Carter was, but Jerome Tang, like he warned us all summer long and throughout the offseason, Cam Carter's going to be that guy. I think a lot of us, myself included, just thought, you know what? This is coach speak. He's just trying to hype up his guy. Taj Manning's a future all Big 12 player. Okay, let's, pump the brakes on some of the stuff that Tang is saying. And his comments towards Carter, I kind of put in that same category. But they were right. They meant what they were saying about Cam Carter. So he's made a huge improvement. But oh boy,
no.
Am I here? Y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Good?
Yep.
Okay. The biggest surprise has been Finister, and that's not just the recency bias. What he's done over the last 5-6 games has outdone anything that any other Wildcat has done all season, hands down.
And I look at a guy like Will McNair. We don't know what he was in the past. We can see his stats, and that's improved, but he's so much better than I thought he would be.
I was going to say Will McNair.
Yeah.
And maybe not necessarily most improved, but he feels like not go back to Jerome Tank's comments, and then he wasn't one of these players, but when you talk about buy-in, I guess, he seems like he has found his role and he has become really reliable. I don't know if that's an improvement of what he was in the past, at another school, but he's certainly reliable. And you look at him on the court, you're just like, okay, you know what you're getting from Will McNair tonight. And, you don't really have to worry about him on the court as you might have earlier in the season. So, I think there's definitely more guys on the team like Finister, like Carter, that are definitely more improved. But from a stability and reliability standpoint, having Will McNair there is really key for the Cats.
Will McNair got suspended, with air quotes, for a game by Tang for like what sounds like he didn't hold the door open for him in like the practice facility or something. So I'm not saying he was immature to start the year, but yeah, Zach, you mentioned it. Like he's just a reliable guy. And from everything we hear and what Coach Tang says, is just a great locker room guy for this team to have, and always a smile on his face, positive energy. And so, yeah, who knows? Like none of us watched Mississippi State, right? Like we don't really know what he was like, but you look at the numbers. We've all looked at his numbers. He's made a big improvement from what he was before he was at K-State.
Dude can play. He can play.
Yeah. Again, like you mentioned with Finister, like at the time you signed this player, you guys are laughing at me.
No,
he said dude, and I thought dude was going to perk up when I said his name.
He's just laying here.
I'm sorry, guys. Dude, I didn't want to wake you up. You're still laying down. Okay, that's the power of StreamYard. I can see the Cats and Dogs studio here in the backstage.
You can. That's right. You see him laying there.
With Finister, you talked about it, Fitz. He was the timing of bringing in Finister. There he is. There's dude sleeping his night away. It's late. It's very late.
Derailing this podcast.
What? Oh no.
The same thing could be said with Will McNair. They brought him in right before the season started. He left Providence in August, right? And so you just didn't expect him to be an impact player, but he's now a starter in Big 12 play.
I agree.
Moving to football, next question's from KSU Todd. Are you surprised that Connor Riley plans to be in the booth next year, and how will that affect play calling?
I am so surprised by that. I am stunned by that. But, he knows he needs to be up there to do it. He wants to do it. It's the next step in his career. I think having Matt Wells on the staff helps if he's going to be on the sideline to kind of look out for those offensive linemen and try to help with that. But yeah, I think it's a great hire to have Wells come in and be there to assist Connor Riley in his first, full season as an offensive coordinator, play caller. There'll be growing pains, no doubt about it. But yeah, I am surprised. If you track back to what I said through this whole process, I thought he just wouldn't want to leave his guys on the sideline, particularly in a rebuilding year like next year. But he must have found a way to come to peace with that.
at first, when you hear the news that he's going to go up to the booth, yes, I probably would have been a bit surprised. But when you explain it and you look out, you look back at Matt Wells, he was a head coach. That means he was on the sideline. He's probably a good presence to have on that sideline. Kind of makes a little bit of sense if Connor Riley wants to be a play caller. If he wants to call the plays, he's going to have to go up top at some point, whether it's K-State, whether it's somewhere else. If he's going to be a coordinator, that's something he's got to learn to do and to improve his career and improve his stock as a potential head coach somewhere. So, I think that having Matt Wells down on the field is, it's going to be good for the team. I think it's going to be good for Connor Riley. And, it's something you look at and you say, you can trust it. I think there's some trust there. And, I think that Connor going up to the booth is just kind of his growth as a coach going forward.
Yes.
Okay. I agree. That's all I've got to add for football.
Well, you got
That was good.
Last question of the podcast from I Like Pickles Cat. What do you expect the offense to look like in 2024? Will it be closest to what Courtney Messingham and old NDSU look like, or what Colin Klein had, Matt Wells, or does Connor Riley have his own unique style?
I think he's going to run basically Colin Klein's playbook. I think he's comfortable with that, but he will move around into some different stuff. He'll add his own things. We might see some different approaches to the run game. I don't know. Matt Wells has a history with spreading the field with receivers, and maybe we see some of that to help clear the way for Avery to run the ball. My question becomes this: how often do they want to run Avery Johnson? Are they going to be protective of him like they were in the bowl game? Because, they're not going to have any experienced backups unless they bring someone in from the portal, but I don't see that happening. So are they going to be too overly cautious and not run him? They've got to take advantage of his ability, but you can't get him hurt either. So it's my way of saying I have no idea. There's too many factors at work here that they could lean into Wells to kind of design stuff. But I know Connor Riley is a really bright football mind, so he's going to have his own philosophies. And I think we saw from how he called the plays, understanding that he was asked not to put his young quarterback in peril very often. How he called the game was very balanced and effective. I mean, they got the win, for heaven's sake, with a freshman quarterback. So there was something to be said about that he did a pretty decent job. And once you understand the limitations of what he was working with from Coach what Kleiman wanted, you understand that he did a pretty good job.
I think it'll probably look closest to Klein just because that's what it's been the last couple of years. But also you want to make Avery look good because Avery's going to win you some football games. And, if Avery came to play in Colin Klein's playbook, I think there's going to be a lot of plays that carry over that Avery's going to want to play. So, and call on the field. So, I don't think it's going to be anything, what Messingham was, or maybe even what Matt Wells was, but I think probably closest to Colin Klein just because that's what, most of the team knows. It's what Avery expected to play. And, they saw success, like you said, in the bowl game. They were able to win the game.
When you hire from within, it's kind of unreasonable to expect drastic changes, right? There'll be some, things here and there, absolutely. But by and large, I wouldn't expect any sweeping. Is that a good word to use? Sweeping changes here with the offensive coordinator, the way that things are called. You like that word, Fitz? I'm trying my hardest to sound smart on this.
Yeah. Okay. Sweeping makes you sound brilliant. Okay, go ahead.
That's all I had to add. I just wouldn't expect too much of a change.
Well, look, this isn't like when Courtney Messingham left. They needed to revamp the offense. That's why there was a change. This was a guy getting a better job. The offense was working so good that he got hired. So I think you probably stick with that. Stick with what works. That's it for the Powercat Podcast. I'm currently petting a dog. You should be jealous, Ryan Gilbert, because I get to pet dogs, and you're at home alone. All alone. We'll talk to you next week.
This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.
Matt, Ryan? Did you know the NFL playoffs on CBS stream live on Paramount Plus?
I just want a frozen fudge bar.
Bet you didn't know Super Bowl 58 was in Vegas this year.
What about a Sunday?
Super Bowl Sunday on CBS streams live on Paramount Plus.
Seriously?
Would an NFL MVP lie?
Former MVP. Can we at least get a selfie?
Of course. I got your NFL playoffs on CBS and Super Bowl 58 streaming live on Paramount Plus.
Ready to ride? I thought you'd never ask.
It's the untold story of the greatest American lawman.
I'm warning you, your wicked days are done.
Lawmen, Bass Reeves' new original series, now streaming exclusively on Paramount Plus.